It's no secret that Pokemon games these days simply aren't the same level of quality that they used to be. I think that's been pretty clear ever since the franchise first took its plunge into 3D with 2013's Pokemon X and Y, and it seems like this trend has only crescendoed into where we find ourselves today with Pokemon's 8th generation. For the past 5 or so years, ever since Pokemon has made the change to be on the Switch, every single release, without fail, has been met with backlash upon backlash, criticism upon criticism, leaving most everyone's Twitter feed be the same cesspool of 3 or 4 complaints being targeted at every single Pokemon release. As easy as it would be to sit here and complain about Pokemon Twitter, when you cut through the angry gamer rants, I think the recent series of criticisms aimed towards the Pokemon series are pretty warranted, more so for the most recent Pokemon releases, that being Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, the long-awaited Sinnoh remakes that finally dropped last November. From day one of these games being announced, it was already the subject of everyone's complaints for the next 6 or 7 months. The big one being everyone asking, what was the point? Say what you will about how the game looks, or the fact that the EXP share still doesn't give you the option to turn it off, or even the fact that the affection mechanic is back in a new way that completely destroys any difficulty some of these harder fights could have in the game. At its core, everyone is asking why these games were made at all. What is their point in existing? Say what you will about the marketing for bdsp, but when they said that these games are going to be faithful to the original DS games, they were not lying. bdsp are essentially tile-for-tile remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, games for the DS that came out 15 years ago. When you take this into account, our previous question becomes even more pressing. Why were these games even made? At first, the obvious answer seems to lie in Game Freak's laziness and greed. I don't need to be the one to tell you that Pokemon remakes have been a thing for nearly as long as the franchise has been around, starting with Fire Red and Leaf Green in 2004, only 8 years into the series' history. But when you look back at the previous remakes and begin comparing them to what we got with the Sinnoh remakes, you begin to notice definite differences in the type of content we ended up getting. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the last remakes to come out, featured the Hoenn region that everyone knows and loves from the original GBA games, but it was more like a complete reimagining of Hoenn rather than just a recreation. Not only is every single character completely redesigned, some cities like Mauville have been renovated completely. Oras also featured new mechanics such as the Gen 6 staple of Mega Evolutions, introducing 20 brand new Megas for both Pokemon from Hoenn and those who originated from other regions, not even counting the new primal forms that Groudon and Kyogre were also given. But it also added mechanics such as the Pokénav, or allowing you to fly in the back of Latios and Latias. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire did all of this along with what was expected of Pokemon remakes at the time, which was to bring these old regions into the modern day by updating their graphics and mechanics. While Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire aren't perfect games, trust me, they have their problems, but when you look at it compared to other remakes we've gotten over the years, there's no doubt that Oras does the most to reinvent the region it's remaking. And of course, that's not to discredit Heart Gold and Soul Silver, who added the entire Yucine/Suicune side quest into the main story of the game that originated from Pokemon Crystal. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl does next to none of the things that previous remakes did to make their regions feel distinct from their original counterparts. The only thing that bdsp does to really differentiate itself from its DS counterparts is a graphical overhaul and to bring modern game mechanics, such as the Fairy type to Sinnoh. So, pretty much the bare minimum when it comes to a Pokemon remake. Aside from the changes to how contests work and the addition of the Grand Underground, Pokemon bdsp tries its very best to stick to the skeleton that the original Diamond and Pearl has left for it, even going as far to use the same character designs from 2007. I won't lie and say that this is pretty disappointing, especially when you look back at a remake like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Those games aspired to be something unique from the GBA games that came before them. Say what you will about the difficulty of the game, but you cannot deny that fact. The only reason to play bdsp over the original games is simply due to the fact that they're on the Switch, and they don't have the same problems as the original hardware of the DS. Other than that, you're basically getting the same experience as you would just playing the originals, and that's super disappointing. It's disappointing because it's easy to imagine what an Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire level reimagining of Sinnoh could have been like, especially on the Switch. Now that I've brought all that up, it seems all the more obvious that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were only developed for Game Freak to make a quick buck, simply playing into our nostalgia and repackaging the same game they've already made because they know that people will buy it. And while I do think that what I just said definitely played a role into why Game Freak decided to make these games, I'm leaving out two very important details that likely played an even bigger role in this game's development. 1. Game Freak didn't even make these games themselves. Instead, they passed that role on to Ilka, a company that Game Freak has previously worked with to make Pokémon Home. And 2, taking these two things into account, for me at least, it recontextualizes the entire existence of Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and it has since the very day these games were even revealed. Let me take you back to February 26, 2021. It's Pokemon's 25th anniversary, and it's the morning of a brand new Pokemon Presents. And based on past trends, it's very likely to be the morning that a brand new set of games are going to be revealed. Even though the DLC for Sword and Shield had only finished dropping a few months prior, it still felt way too early for Pokemon to begin teasing a possible Generation 9. Now, everyone is going into this presentation with one thing in mind: Sinnoh remakes. Disregarding the rumor mill or any leaks that were going on at the time, it just felt like the right time to be getting remakes. I mean, the last ones to come out were on the 3DS in 2014. It's been 2 whole generations since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire hit shelves, and if there was any time for Sinnoh remakes to come out, it was now. People had been imagining what a modern Sinnoh could possibly look like. Would it use the same engine as Sword and Shield, or would it use a unique one? Would it feature Dynamax or Gigantamax Pokemon? Or would it finally bring the long-awaited return of Mega Evolutions? Would Dialga and Palkia get powerful new forms like Groudon and Kyogre did? These questions dug into the minds of Pokemon fans everywhere as the morning of February 26th finally hit, and then the live stream began. Oh, come on! As it turns out, the Sinnoh remakes that everyone had been longing for looked to be just faithful recreations of the DS games. No Dynamax, no Megas, no redesigns. It wasn't even clear if the game would feature any of the beloved content from Platinum. And just to add insult to injury, the game itself looked like it could have been made using Roblox engine. As the trailer finishes playing and the titles are shown off, you're in complete disbelief at what you just saw. The one and only time Sinnoh is likely to ever be revisited in a mainline game has just been used for half-baked remakes that is nearly the exact same as the games that you played 15 years ago. But as the trailer fades to black, it's revealed that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl aren't the only games being revealed today.
This is a tale from a long, long time ago, when the Sinnoh region was still only a vast wilderness.
That's right. It turns out Game Freak has been working on a game that takes place during the ancient times of the Sinnoh region that looks to be a game similar to Breath of the Wild. This is insane. It seems to be the Pokemon game you've always wanted from this company, an open world Pokemon game that aims to abandon the formula that Pokemon has been using for the past 25 years. And it's releasing only a few months after the traditional remake of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Sinnoh's not only getting one revisit, it's getting 2. Okay, crazy long tangent aside, the reason I just retold the story of how these games were revealed was to remind you of the fact that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus were revealed literally mere seconds apart from each other. And then a couple of minutes later in the same presentation, it's revealed that bdsp is being developed by Ilka, along with the help of Junichi Masuda, the dude who originally directed Diamond and Pearl. When you take all of this into consideration, it's very easy to imagine what likely went down in the boardroom when bdsp were first pitched. Of course, Everything I'm about to say is pure speculation, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I know exactly what went down, but if you're just a little bit cognizant of the current state of the world and how game developers specifically have been impacted by them, it's very easy to deduce that Legends Arceus was likely meant to be our big holiday 2021 release for Pokemon's 25th anniversary until development was heavily altered by the pandemic that swept across the globe. What likely happened was, and again, this is pure speculation, but I imagine the higher ups at Game Freak realized that their big semi-open world Sinnoh game was going to end up not being done in time due to setbacks from the pandemic. They went to a company they had worked with before pretty recently and were like, hey, here are these old DS games, and here's the dude who originally made them. Remake them for Switch. And then just left them to their own devices. Either that, or it was always the plan to have faithful Sinnoh remakes releasing alongside Legends Arceus in case fans ended up hating the experimental approach that game ended up taking. And that's it. Now, does that excuse Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl from being pretty lackluster Pokemon games? No, not at all. In fact, I think if they were going to just make faithful remakes of Sinnoh games, I have no idea why they didn't just remake Platinum, the objectively better game from a design standpoint, apart from them wanting to make that sweet, sweet double game money. And of course, it does not excuse these games being basically unfinished when they launched, but no matter what way you look at it, BDSP were always meant to just be filler games, to keep us occupied while Game Freak worked on the Sinnoh game people have actually been wanting. Because when you think about it, Legends Arceus is the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire level reimagining for Sinnoh. The region is completely redesigned to incorporate more wildlife. The characters, while different in name, are obviously redesigns of the classic character designs from Diamond and Pearl. And the game is adding new forms for Pokemon in the form of regional variants, a trend that didn't start in Generation 8, but it was heavily featured. If it's not clear from all of this and the fact that it's the game that Game Freak actually worked on, it's obvious that this is the Sinnoh remake that Game Freak wanted to make. At the time of writing, Legends Arceus is set to release in a little over a week, and there's still a lot we don't know about the game. We don't fully understand what the core gameplay loop will be, we don't know how prominent battling is going to be in the game, hell, we barely even know what the main story of the game will entail, or if there even is one at all. What we do know though is that this game seems to focus a lot on player exploration and expanding on the lore of the Pokemon universe, two aspects that the mainline games have been sorely missing for the past few entries. People are of course still heavily skeptical about this game, and honestly I can't really blame them. Due to Pokemon's recent history and due to the fact that the game still doesn't really hold a candle graphically to other games released on the same system, I also think that Legends Arceus has the potential to mark a shift in direction at Game Freak and for the Pokemon series as a whole. I think the simple and honestly pretty underappreciated fact that this is only one game, finally abandoning the always pretty scummy practice of having two versions of practically the same game, is such a breath of fresh air for this franchise, and is an obvious indication as to where Game Freak's mindset is when it comes to developing this game. Finally, it seems like they've taken the criticism that has been said about the monotonous and frankly uninspired games that we've been receiving lately and taking a bold, brand new step with this new game, which could turn out to save this franchise in the eyes of many long-term fans, myself included.